Hello and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Bob Dylan deep dive. I'm wearing a funky shirt because of the cover of this album, of course. Highway 61 Revisited. Not only, well, arguably Dylan's most important and most well known and most famous album, one of the most important albums of all time. I've talked about this in the 1965 video. It was in my top five, and I'm going to talk about it again here. To try and put this album into words is so difficult. It was one of the first Dylan albums I heard. I have a feeling I might have heard Freewheeling first, but it was definitely one of the first two, and it was definitely one of the first that I fell in love with on first listen. Like a Rolling Stone, kicks off a new era of both folk and rock. It's such a kick-ass song, deserves all the hype. And honestly, it's one of the best set of lyrics that Dylan ever wrote. Really great, great song. Everybody knows it. It's one of his most famous and beloved songs. I'm not giving you any news, but I can confirm that I do love it. Tombstone Blues, never really my favorite on the album, but I've grown to appreciate it more lately. It's got a really cool bounce to it. It takes a lot to laugh. It takes a train to cry. It's pretty nice. One of his better bluesy songs, I think. Thanks in large part to the vocal performance, which I think is this album vocally in general is great, but that song in particular, he sounds really inspired on. There are a couple songs on this album that do drag it down a bit for me. From a Buick 6, far and away my least favorite on the album. Pretty dull musically. I don't think Dylan sounds as into it vocally as some of the other songs, almost as if he knew the song wasn't as strong. As his vocals a little bit phoned in compared to other songs. But that's fine because the song directly after is Ballad of a Thin Man, which is just peak mysterious Dylan songwriting, so memorable. The organ on that song is perhaps just as impactful as the iconic organ on Like a Rolling Stone. It's like a level of urban mystique, sort of seedy underbelly to this song. The line "You've been through all F. Scott Fitzgerald's books" always makes me chuckle. Not even sure why. It's just the snark of the delivery. It's just like really fun and sarcastic and just great. Queen Jane Approximately, one of the more lovely songs on the album. The combination of the barroom piano and the piercing organ again continues here, and the refrain is memorable and melodic, and for its length, it really flies by too. Title track is the other one I'm not that in love with. I do prefer PJ Harvey's grungy cover. I know that's a controversial thing. I don't like the stupid slide sound effects, but it is a well-written song. Just the composition and performance of it on this album, not as big on. And just like Tom Thumb's Blues has this intoxicating intro. Love the guitar tone and the rolling piano throughout. Guitar on that song is just awesome, and it's really well written. And then you get to Desolation Row, the closing track, considered one of his very best songs for a very good reason. The lyrics, of course, referencing all these characters, fictional and historical, terrific, and the story sucks me in every time for the 11 minutes. But my favorite thing about the song is the melodic sensibilities of it and the very subtle arrangement with the acoustic guitar and double bass. Oh my God, it's so tasteful. It's sort of like somewhere in between his acoustic stripped back songs and his full band stuff that you'd get on this album. The arrangement is unique within the album and yeah, adds a little bit extra onto the song, but it still feels pretty stripped back. The album in general, of course, it is a rock album, which was controversial at the time. You had some rock songs on Bringing It All Back Home, but this is a complete departure from what he was doing before. The rocking songs rock harder. There is a greater influence from rock and roll throughout the album than on Bringing It All Back Home. And, in that sense, it is a landmark album, again, not just for Dylan, but for music history. I also think that the full band arrangements coincide with his most consistent set of songs up to this point, quite comfortably. He had a really great set of songs on Freewheeling, but there are also some songs on that album that I could probably do without. There's two songs that I'm not super big on this album, but the other seven are just career highs, really. You know, the level of musicianship is of the top draw. It is a true career highlight. It's not my favorite Bob Dylan album, but if you were to come to me to tell me it's the best, then I wouldn't argue. The track ratings, as you can see here, my overall score would be a 9 out of 10. I think it's fantastic and definitely the best album up to this point. With my least favorite track being From a Buick 6, and my favorite song being Like a Rolling Stone, but I also put Desolation Row and Ballad of a Thin Man at the full 10 out of 10 score. You know, it's kind of interesting. A lot is spoken about Dylan's artistic, almost rivalry with the Beatles, and yeah, this album just feels like before that, maybe before that rivalry really kicked in, and this is just Dylan's full personal statement and his launching off into this whole different career. You know, there's definitely an idea of what could have been. You know, knowing what comes after Blonde on Blonde, that he goes back to the more stripped back, almost country style. He was definitely a man who made the record that he wanted to make rather than the record that he felt like he should make, which it makes his discography incredibly interesting. But there's definitely a sense of like, what if he just went down this sort of folk rock path for the rest of his career? I think his discography would be less interesting, but maybe it would be more consistent. I'm not sure. There's something to ponder, I suppose. But Highway 61 Revisited is a terrific album, and I'm not the first person to say that. It's going to rank at number 1 so far, with Bringing It All Back Home just behind it, number 2, Freewheeling at 3, Times They Are Changing at 4, Another Side of Bob Dylan at 5, and the self-titled at number 6. And next, hopefully next week, you'll be seeing the next episode, which will be on Blonde, of course, which I have proclaimed to be my best Bob Dylan album. Will it stay that way throughout this journey? I'm not sure, but I'm very excited to talk about that album because I have probably a more personal connection and love for it than this album. As incredible as this album is, that is the one that I really am drawn to the most, and I'll get into that next time out. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe. If you haven't, let me know what you think of Highway 61 Revisited. Where does it rank for you among Bob Dylan's discography? I imagine there'll be a lot of people who have it at number 1, and I think almost everybody would have it in their top 3 to 5 at least. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I will catch you soon.